Barry, can you hear me? Do you hear me or no? Testing, mic, check. Can you hear me at all? All right, and we are live. Hopefully the audio works. If I can get a quick mic sound check from my co-producer here. Welcome everybody to this episode of Ask Shai. We should be live here. We're just double checking when we get started. This is always the fun of doing a production and trying to live at the same time. For anybody that is not familiar, again, this is the Ask Shai show, or what I like to call the Ask Shai, because that's how I spell it down there. Hey, Damien, thanks for popping up there.
Hey.
And so the Ask Shai show is really about sharing my stories and journey through Web3 and blockchain and things I'm building, and really help build content and share all the cool stories that are out there and things that are going on. I feel very fortunate and privileged to get to work every day with really awesome people and get exposed to really cool projects and ideas and things that are going on. And so I look to use this space to share that, as well as share updates on Kalman Storage, which is the startup we're building. And we have a really awesome team with us as well, building Kalman Storage. It's in short, it's a Web3 venture studio. We build Web3 focused startups. The thesis is all about Web3, which is blockchain, machine learning, and AI, and we build startups really for those products, for those tech segments. And on the show is really a casual format. Usually most of the shows is a general update. I go through different news, different stories, things are going on both in my journey and going through many different founders and startups, as well as the journey of Kalman Storage and things that we're working on. Today, we're going to have a different show format. What we wanted to do was have more of a fireside chat, casual session here. So Damien and I thought it would be fun to really just set up a fireside chat. I have not been privy to these questions, and the goal is really to go through them and really get some detail there. We did talk, Damien, in fairness, or transparency, we did talk about the process, we talked about the themes of the questions, but you went ahead and built your questions, and some of them I have an idea of where you're going with them, and some of them hopefully you'll help me with some curveballs that will throw me off. So this should be a fun session. We'll see how it goes. Generally, most of the sessions we run is about 40 minutes. We'll try to go about till the 45-minute mark. If there's any questions, we have many different channels that people can use, whether you're on YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn, or if you're on Twitter or X. Yeah, you can use that. So again, let's jump in and get started. Damien, you want to give a quick introduction and then get us kicked off?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, thanks again for inviting me on the weekly calls and stuff. But like I said, it's a little different format, so I'm happy to be here, and hopefully we can get a lot more engagement through this and get a lot of community growth from everyone watching right now on various channels. And yeah, we're more than happy to answer some questions too in the comments during our session today. But to kind of get things started, I kind of want to talk about our first topic is when to use AI. I kind of had that funny joke I was telling you the other day. It's like the old expression, can I have eyes with that? It's almost like every business now is going through the drive-through asking, can I have AI with that on top of their service, whether it's SaaS or PaaS or any other platform or anything else. So kind of want to ask you that question. Like, what do you think companies are doing with AI, or all companies should have AI? And just kind of go from there.
Yeah, so let's remember sort of where AI sits, right? So The whole idea is that AI is really about the predictive side of technology, right? It's all about predicting things. It's predicting things because of the underlying data set, right? We understand the underlying data because of something called machine learning. Machine learning is all about making sense of all that underlying data. So once you make sense of all the underlying data, you can now use AI to predict different things in there. So when we really say, can we have AI with that? Like, does the company need AI? The question more is first, is there the data to even analyze to begin with, right? Are you analyzing data? Are you approaching it that way? Is there things internally that you need to make sense of? That's the machine learning portion of it, right? The AI is going to give you the predictive analysis and suggestions and things based off of that data set. So that's one way to approach it, right? If you have that data set, if you have things like sales data, things that you're looking to analyze, you have product information that you're looking to analyze, the goal is ultimately to make sense of that data, right? And so the machine learning enables you to do that, and then the AI on top of that is what gives you the predictive ability, right? We forecast your sales for the next quarter. We forecast which products are particularly hot in certain demographics, maybe which manufacturer, product lines or supply chain are short in stock, and maybe need to source them from other manufacturers, right? So the machine learning part is letting you know where the stock is. The predictive analysis is letting you know, or the AI part is letting you know that that particular supply chain location or warehouse will not have any stock, and therefore you should order it from the other location. Because predictably, we can say they will likely have stock as well. So that's the AI part there, right? So the other way to think of it is more from what we've seen with like ChatGPT in the language models, right, where that's more general AI. Right? You're hearing this AGI, right, the autonomous general AI. We're not quite there yet, where you have fully like a fully general AI that can just kind of do everything. But that's the way that some companies are approaching this, right? So they're saying, hey, okay, there's a chatbot out there that's been trained on a certain data set, and we can go and we can chat with that, and we can ask it questions, and it can return them answers. So again, remember, it's very similar to the original example, but in this case, the underlying data set that it's trained on is maybe a public data set. Now, you can have the same language models that are trained on private data sets as well, but the whole point is, again, we're back to this idea of like, what value are you getting out of it? Right? What predictive analysis are you getting out of it? What sort of answers are you getting out of it? So the important part is it really adding value to your company. Right? Is it a tool in that process? Is it adding something where it's either a reducing a cost center, it's reducing that cost, and because you can reduce that cost, you're able to then go spend that money elsewhere developing other parts of the product. Is it reducing the failure rates because we're able to predict things in the future and where they may be, and able to run those kind of models through simulation? So therefore, you're able to produce better products. Is it simply from the case of using something like ChatGPT as like a chatbot? Right? It's the question of, is it adding value to your business, right? If you have, let's say, a marketing department, it's likely that they're already using some sort of AI tool, right? Many marketing departments for many years have had tools where they go write some sort of content, and there'll be some sort of natural language process or application that will take that and will rewrite that content into a Twitter format, a LinkedIn post, a Facebook post, another post, right? Those platforms have been around for a long time, purely as like social media management tools. So the ability to create content dynamically is not new. The real question is, again, does it add value? And using it in a general tool like ChatGPT, is that really valuable to your company? Right? I would argue in some cases no, and that's the other problem of the sort of, can you have AI, can you have everything there, right? Because if you're implementing a general AI and you're telling your marketing team, they use ChatGPT to create marketing content, ChatGPT doesn't know the structure of the content. It doesn't know the format that it's supposed to be. It's guessing, right? A best educated guess based on the Twitter post that it has, what a Twitter post would look like. It doesn't mean that that's the format that your company wants it in. It doesn't mean that's the language that your company wants it in. It doesn't mean that's using the hashtags that your company wants to use. So there's still a big part of teaching the models what that's like and what we expect. And those tools are getting better. There are a lot of tools popping up where you're not using just ChatGPT. You can import and set up a prompt template and then share that with your team, so that they can get ahead and do those things. And now you're at a level where you're really creating more of applications than you are really just AI. right? So kind of to bring it back to where we started, right? The question was, does everybody need AI? And we talked about some of the different use cases and where it makes sense. But ultimately, it's the same question of, does everybody need an application, right? If we're using these AI tools to basically send input to and get output from, then it's no different from any other application that we use. It's just we're using it in different ways. So I think that's the biggest question is, does that output add value in return for the amount of work that we have to do for the inputs coming in? And then there's still a security side on the other hand. So, Damien, hopefully that gives a good starting point for an answer.
It does. I mean,
A couple things.
it kind of goes back to like the hot trends and like things that a lot of businesses are trying to like tack on to like, oh, we can exponentially like our sales doing this, or like back in the day, like Beanie Babies were so popular. Let's do a collaboration with Beanie Babies, like Donald, their own exclusive one. We even seen that with NFTs like 2 years ago or so. So it's just interesting to see like if this is more a trend, it's like more like of like an actual use case scenario that things are going to be implemented. And I feel like what you're saying, it's true. Like when you look at chatbots or you look at automating processes or any kind of like predictive stuff to where it can help like maybe predict more orders or predict more story, stuff like that. So it's going to be useful. So this is going to be a trend that I can see in the future that's going to be implementing. So it's really cool. But to kind of dive a little bit more further in that topic, it's like we could see that more on the business side when implementing AI. The other question is now it's how it's affecting almost like our personal lives, or like how it's coming more in our face, even outside of work. So the next thing I would kind of bring up is AI and social media. And the joke that I made is like AI, like you send you a friend request, where, you know, now we're seeing implemented chatbots in social media. Now it's going to be more ads that are targeted to us that could be implemented with more AI. What are your thoughts with AI and social media?
So are you thinking more of not so much the marketing teams using AI to sort of spam and take social media, because we've had that. I think, are you going more towards like AI avatars and sort of like AI pretending to be human and using basically AI avatars in like social platforms to tell us stuff? Is that kind of the direction you're going in there?
Just really kind of anything AI and social media. So whether it's like AI avatars that are kind of like maybe spamming us, or even like, again, like even advertising AI, where it's maybe like a social media tool that Meta creates using AI that's like geolocated, tag located with age, stuff like that,
Okay.
tools that are implementing. So either or,
Oh,
maybe, yeah.
so the sort of marketing side of the tools, right? Those have been there for a very long time, right? Now the tools getting AI logic into them, right? About being able to launch a campaign, target 10,000 customers, get that data back, and then within 2 hours readjust the model, and then send out to a new set of targeted campaign, and then come back and readjust. Those are there today, right? If they're not like fully scaled out and rolled out across like enterprise wide marketing campaigns, right? Like I think that level of sophistication is done at like the Facebook kind of level, right? And some of the other big thing companies, when you have those kind of resources to create those kind of models that can run those kind of campaigns programmatically. And you see that, right? When you're looking at Twitter and you see some tweets that are promoted, you look on Facebook, or even it doesn't happen on LinkedIn as much, but like on Reddit particularly, right? You see a lot of ads and posts that look and feel like a real post, but when you start going through and you actually read it, it's not a real post; it's an ad. So that's been happening for a while. What we're seeing more of is I would say it's the lack of transparency. Brands before would do that, and they would do it under their brand handle, like it was on X or Twitter, or whatever, on Facebook, on Reddit, any of those. They would do it under their own brand, and they would put it as that. They then started hiring, social media influencers to go and run these campaigns for them. And now they're saying, okay, well, we can use the AI bots as a social influencer, and it's the AI bot that is selling you on this part or this is. I kind of call that BS, because it's just coming back to the first one that we did, right? Because originally what we did was have the marketing campaigns automated, and they were telling us who they were. They were being transparent. Now they're not influencers. They're AI bots, right? And they're using those AI bots to do that. Now, if the AI bot is somebody else's, like let's say Damien, you went and spun up your own AI bot, and somehow that took off, and got a million followers and stuff like that, and they partner with you, and that's your sort of pseudo anonymity and stuff like that. Okay, that's different, right? If they're just creating AI bots and they have AI bots there, and they're the influencers, and then they go and be on their own, and then they're leveraging the marketing campaigns, it's a bit misleading. So I think again, it probably get into some sort of like influencer marketing laws and regulations, and what you can and can't do with influencers. But I think the AI part of it is about making that marketing machine more efficient, right? It shouldn't be about spamming more messages. It should be about what do people actually really care about, and based on the campaigns that we've sent them before, how can we be more targeted? How can we be more specific with what we're sharing? Not necessarily how can we replace things. There was a question I came in here.
Yeah, but before we get to that question, what if like there's like we hear tools that like Elon's implementing to X and other social medias where it's removing bots, but yet people use AI tools to help creative posts or titles or things. What if that tool can conflict with what's real and that's a bot or what's using AI? Then getting rid of actual people that are trying to use the creativity of AI, or is it kind of hindering itself? Like, what do you think of that kind of like twist on it?
I think the hindrance is the pretending that it's real, right? Like if it's an AI bot, it should state that it's an AI bot, right? The fact that it's pretending it's real, and people are falling for it, to me that's a con. You're misleading people, right? If it's a pseudo anonymity thing, right, where somebody's doing it because they're trying to be anonymous, and they're saying, hey, I'm trying to be anonymous and this is a bot, they're hiding behind a veil, right? And then we have like privacy laws, and that's a more privacy discussion, right? The angle I think that you're talking about more is from a marketing side, right? And really from like growth and outreach. How do you leverage bots in a sort of an ethical way? And I think it's about transparency and really saying, hey, this content was created by a bot. This content was created by this. That answer your question?
It does. But now we
All
can
right.
get to our comment that we have on YouTube here from No Autopilot. I'm finding that AI helps with the ideation, but I haven't quite found a way to make it offload workload automatically. Maybe too early.
I mean, yes, I think it is too early, right? The whole idea of being able to offload workload automatically is really what things like Auto GPT and Baby AGI, and really the whole idea of a general AI are after, right? It's kind of like in Star Trek or Star Wars, right? When you would talk to the computer in Star Trek, for example, and you would say, I want this food. It would say, okay, here's the food, here's this, and it would give you that food as a replicator. If you said, hey, I need this part, it knew where to deliver that part too, right? It kind of understood all the other pieces around it. We're still not there yet, right? So the point that No Autopilot is making about ideation is true, right? It helps with that ideation process, but that really iterative ideation process, right, about building on top of other ideas together, chaining a different ideas together, and that it is too early. There are tools that do a better job at it. There are particularly document writing tools where you can go in and you can start writing your document, and they analyze that document, they give you suggestions, and they help. And it's this whole idea of chain of thought kind of thing about like, how do you keep track of what the person's talking about, but at the same time make suggestions for other topics, other questions, or other things that are adjacent to that. So that's why we're early, but it's probably only about a year or two till we get there. I think we got a year.
I agree. I think it's I mean all these things are new and it's just ever ending, like evolving when it comes to it. So I think it's just going to be soon we're finding ourselves with more ways of tricks of having automation or any ways of creativity where it can help us or even maybe hurt us. It's just going to happen. There's going to be some good into this and some good and bad into it as well.
Yeah,
Let,
people are already building that stuff, though. It's inevitable to happen.
Yeah, and then there's going to be policies on that, and then we're going to see what the policy then dictates into what the whole market will think onto it. I mean, what are your thoughts on the recent AI summit that they had in DC?
I, so my general thought is education is important for politicians in general, but in a large forum like that, I wonder how many of the people there are truly grasping onto what they're hearing, right? Like it's such a wide audience, and a deep topic to go into that I question the effectiveness, right? If you're trying to bring everybody to the same level, that's great. And maybe that's the level that those people that were in the room needed, and that's fine. But if it's just a general conference and it's not really targeting where it's relevant to them, my concern is a lot of the politicians will sit in the room and they'll go over their heads because they'll say, hey, I support this, community, and in my rural community, there's no need for AI, right? We don't need these things here. We don't want it. And because we don't need to understand it. We don't see the value in it. We don't see how it's adding things. Maybe sometimes we're fine the way that we are. And so you can't come at it with a general conference angle like that. I think you have to come at it with a very specific story and messaging around, okay, if you live in a small town in rural America, why would you care about AI? How is it actually making your life better? If you work in a coal mine, is it really just the canary in the coal mine, right? Is it the tooling now is better to tell you when the mine is safer? And that's what AI is to you when you live in rural Pennsylvania, let's say. Or is it that you want much more data and you want it to tell you everything, right? You want it to tell you what to do and how to do it. So I think that's the question is ultimately how much autonomy do you want versus the control of the AI itself?
Yeah, I agree too. I believe the education is going to be fundamental onto this. I think what they're trying to do is that they see this exponentially growing as far as adaptation, what we talked about earlier. I think it's more just framework and just what they're trying to control into it, just like what they usually do when it comes to policies, not trying to limit, not trying to hinder on like entrepreneurial like skills like creativity or innovation. So I think it's just like a little bit of catch and mess with like what parameters are going to set around with this. And I agree with your examples too, like small town person, what kind of tools are they going to use or how's it going to really affect them. I think it's just going to come into a lot of situations where they're just going to like check the boxes here and there, but we'll see.
Yep.
Let's see. The next topic that I have is talk about NFT sustainability. We've seen through some articles recently, I think within the past week or so, about like how 90% of NFT market crashes, or 90% of the NFT market has crashed from their all-time highs. Care to comment on that?
Yeah, so I think if we're not getting to focus on the technical side of things, because I like to stay on that side. Right? When we're talking about the sustainability, I look at it as, okay, there's an NFT created, NFT minted. What happens to that NFT, right? If it lives on chain forever and you have all these millions of NFTs created, how does that affect sustainability? So there's two ways to look at sustainability, right? One is like ecosystem, climate, environment, sustainability, right? How is all the minting of these NFTs and trading of these NFTs contributing to, let's say, pollution in the ecosystem, the sustainability of the earth, right? How does it contribute to that sustainability of the earth? That's a tough one to go down because you start looking at the cost of running the server equipment, cost of minting for mint, and it can get fairly complex. And sometimes it ends up feeling like it's just kind of a shot in the dartboard, right? You're just kind of guessing a broad brush stroke of, hey, what it could be. You're not 100% of what it actually is. So that's the sort of climate sustainability part. That to me is no different from any other application, right? We shouldn't be asking how are NFTs environmentally sustainable. It's not how we make NFTs environmentally sustainable, it's how we make applications environmentally sustainable. Blockchain applications really just live on chain as a chain code, but there's no, NFT. At least now, right? You rarely see an NFT that just lives on chain only. You see it in OpenSea along with the trading and the collection, everything else that's there. Maybe you see it featured on the website. You see bridges natively built into some of the trading platforms to help facilitate asset movement between different chains. So the sustainability really becomes a question more about data longevity, right? If you write an NFT or mint an NFT today in end of September 2023, how long will that realistically be available? Well, the answer is that's really not a clear answer either, because it depends on what the network takes to stay up and running. Arguably, if you take down the whole entire network and one node comes back, and many blockchains, that is sufficient to continue handling transactions and the network to continue operating. You will then likely get a couple popping up right after, simply for the FOMO case of survival, right? Like, hey, somebody's doing it, let's go do it too. So the question ultimately at the end is really, what do we do with that data that lives around, right? How do we can't really prune the data, but how do we make sure that we don't have data that's sitting around for years on end and is not for any benefit, right? It's really just causing more and more storage waste and compute waste. So how do we be more efficient with storage? So I'll wrap that one there.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I think, yeah, when we look at sustainability that way, as far as like being on the chain and stuff, I could see it living there as long as, like what you were mentioning, the network being there for like as long as it's being supported or powered. I think it's more of not only that, it's maybe even look at data waste too, as far as like it just being stored on there, and if it ever needs to be cleaned up or cleared out or whatever. I think that's part of the community that's taken ownership of that, the community owners. What if we looked at sustainability as far as what the actual goal of the NFT project's about? What if we dive deep into the actual products? Why is it that we see such a lull in them? Is it because market interest into the space? Is it because everyone's focused on anything else? I know that's kind of a big, wide topic or broad question.
Well,
but what would you say? What would you say?
Well, yes. So you're talking about is sustainability of volume, right? It's volume of transactions, really, because that's what we're talking about. When we talk about mints, when we talk about selling NFTs, we talk about trading NFTs, all that stuff really boils down to transactions on chain, which is really volume, right? So the question is, and again, for clarity and disclaimer, right? This is not an investment show. We don't talk about anything investing related.
Yeah,
right?
non-financial advice.
So again, think of the transactions on the network and what do those transactions mean to the overall network? If the overall transactions to the network are coming from NFTs, right, and we're not seeing that volume of NFTs, that then means that there's less liquidity overall in the network, right? There's less people playing and active in the network. And so when you lose that volatility, when you lose that liquidity, that then has the consequential effect of reducing the number of people that are buying the NFTs and trading or using the NFTs. That effect then has further volume reducing effect. So it's kind of like a cascading effect. And because the market is so immature, when you're talking about volume and the number of transactions, right, what shifts a network's sort of user base, right, performance can sometimes be 2 to 3%. So sometimes you get 2 to 3% more users, and that affects the performance of the network, the number of transactions you can handle, and therefore it does have an effect on pricing and everything like that. But the important part is to understand really that transaction throughput rate, because that is where the volume is coming from, right? And that's also a bit of a problem, because one of the reasons why I believe we saw such decrease in volume came from a lot of other networks besides Ethereum saying, hey, we have 0 to very, very cheap, fractions of a penny, 4 zeros and a 1 for transactions. And so you had a lot of people that were coming in and saying, okay, well, how can we take advantage if the operational cost of transaction fees is so low and we can get capital from the ecosystem to raise some funds and hire some artists? How do we do that in a very quick and fast way? And that's really what we saw a lot of in the NFT boom that was in like 2021, was just more and more copycat things, right? And yes, that creates a sustainable volume, but the reality of it is, as we see, it's not really sustainable, because the people that are coming to create that volume of transactions are not doing it because they want to interact with the contract because it's a new thing and they're trying to learn something. It's because either they're trying to invest or they don't see value in it, so they don't invest.
Yeah, and I think that's just what a lot of these people that created these NFTs are kind of realizing. Like they thought, just like a lot of things that we hope in life are always going to go up forever, or where's it get the positive and stuff like that. So as far as like a business owner or an artist creative standpoint, when they see this or hear this, a lot of things can just be very sad to hear as far as like their projects are not picking up, or just what their whole investment into it, they're getting out of it. But
That's because that's because it's a false strategy though. It's a false strategy to say like, hey, I have this product, this container, and this container in theory is going to go up in price forever. Like that's not realistic. Like yes, it's going to raise due to inflation, it's going to raise due to market demand, but it's going to plateau at some point. Maybe it'll raise a little bit, then it'll plateau again, it'll raise a tiny bit, and it'll plateau for a while, right? So it's not this continual uh, growth. There's this perception, right, that is what has to happen, right? In order to have a mature market, in order to have a healthy market, you have to be able to sustain this hockey stick growth effect. That's not realistic. It's actually very bad because anytime you have that kind of growth, just naturally, you're going to have a rubber band effect that brings it back down. And that's exactly what we saw, right? We saw a hockey stick shot to the top, a rubber band effect that pulled everything back to the bottom, right? So, in anything, right? Again, just talking about network growth from a transactional perspective, if you're looking at a network, the network is acquiring, an average of 5 million users a day, and all of a sudden one day they acquire 200 million users. The question is, hey, what the heck happened? Right? What are they doing that's different from before? And how is this going to change and affect the network? How does it change performance and fees and all that stuff? How does it create more or less opportunity in the ecosystem? So it's really about understanding the various networks that are out there and how to take advantage of the ecosystem around them.
what
Right.
ecosystems or what environments would you kind of suggest for a lot of these people to kind of go through, especially for first time people that are in this Web3 world, or in this kind of, if you will, that are looking for guidance or ways of innovating further into it? Like you said, like it's the way, like you can't just, it's stupid to kind of look at it that it's always going to go up forever, but as a business and as a person, you have to self-involve, and innovate within yourself. So what kind of suggestions would you have for people that are in that space or looking for guidance?
Yeah, so I think you have to look at what ecosystem has the sort of artists that you like, right? If you're coming at NFTs purely from an art perspective, and that's why you are involved and that's why you're enjoying NFTs because of that art side of it, right? You're not buying like the Taylor Swift NFT from the concert or something like that. You're not buying the receipt for the concert ticket. You're buying the sort of art and memorabilia that go along with it. If that's the reason why you're buying it, it's the same reason as why people move to different art scenes in New York or LA or Las Vegas, because they want to be amongst that art scene. They want to be amongst the people that are there. They know that if they surround themselves with those people, they will get exposure to all different kinds of art, not just quality, but also price. So it's the same thing, right? You want to look, where is there the marketplaces that are catering and are selling towards your type of customers. If you're an anime artist and that's what you do, why would you go and sell on a general marketplace, right? Ideally, you would get more for your resources by going to a specific marketplace. It's the same argument again in the Web2 traditional world. You could sell a car on places like eBay and other auction sites. The question is, right, is that where car shoppers are going, or are car shoppers going to Muscle Car magazine? Well, if you have a muscle car, you're probably gonna get a lot more attention in the muscle car magazines because that's where the muscle car buyers are, rather than the general buyers on eBay. So the question is more about where are the most eyeballs that relate to why it is that you're there in the first place. You're there because you like anime. Okay, well that ecosystem, whichever chain it may be, has a strong anime presence. There's a lot of anime artists that are building on that chain. There's a lot of anime related themed marketplaces that are building on that chain as well. And so when you're looking for that sustainability in terms of volume and transactions, that's what you're looking for, because you're trying to see where is there those sources of transactions, right? Where's that volume coming from? And it's going to come from those marketplaces.
Gotcha.
So,
No, and it makes sense too. And like we're too, these communities, the marketplaces. I mean, the people that are the ones that kind of like grab and kind of like hodl, if you will, on these entities or anything else. They're the people that believe in the project or just want to be participating into it. And even within those communities too, they help kind of self-rise into those occasions too. But what is something that and this may be a little bit me leaving away from the engagement as far as NFTs and stuff, but what kind of things are going on with Kalman's Forge while we see not such hype into Web3 or anything? We just see more in AI, but what can we say that Kalman's Forge is more of a spotlight into these projects or into these things that people could be interested in too?
yeah, so I think the important thing to understand is, like, even though AI is the big hype and everybody likes to shout AI and all that stuff, right? You can't really have AI without the machine learning tools. I'll say you can't have machine learning without the underlying data either. Blockchain is one of those data sources, right? And that's really what Web3 is about having access to all those three layers. So our goal is really building the products that define those three layers, and really build new businesses around those three layers as well. So the exciting part for us is really just our continued refinement of our product line, our product pipeline, our external pipeline, as well as our internal investments, and really refining and honing in on what our deliverables are going to be in the next 2 to 3 years. I think the really exciting part is when we start working on specific initiatives that we have, like Interview Machine and Strain Chain, and the markets that they rely on. And going back a bit to what you said before about how AI is, sort of the hype there. The goal is understanding that even when you're coming at things from a supply chain side, you can't solve all the solutions with AI only. And so we're actively working with various suppliers on some of our supply chain solutions and ideas and startups that we're talking about. We are working and talking with different content creation studios, if you will, on how something like the Interview Machine can be facilitated there, how being able to hold a dynamic interview in the metaverse would look like, what would it look like to capture a story of somebody, and then later how would they monetize that story and actually own that story moving forward. So there's a lot of pieces in really understanding the different products that we have. Our goal is hopefully to launch within November, that we start building some of our products and start delivering in November. We just have to close our pre-seed round and then we can move on to good building. So
That's awesome.
That's the sort of product side. From just education announcements, I'm excited that we have a lot of content that we've developed in the last, let's say, 2 months almost. Just a lot of learning materials, whether it comes from a scoring matrix of how to score the various L1s that you're looking at. Again, not from an investment perspective, because we're not talking about RSI and Bollinger Bands and all this stuff. What we're talking about is that network sustainable, right? That's stuff that Damien was talking about, right? Does the network have that volume? Does it have the developers there? Are they building, right? All these things and data points that lead to answer that question of, yes, is this network sustainable? Those are the things that we have in our content library, our IP library internally that we've developed, and we're working very eagerly and excited over the next couple of weeks to hopefully start externalizing a lot of that content library material that we have, just so everybody can take a benefit from and learn.
That's awesome. I'm excited. That's really cool.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. And we're a little bit close to time here. We're 5 minutes a little shy. No pun intended on shy. But no, I appreciate the time here and the little chat that we had and stuff. This was fun. I appreciate everyone that joined in on the call. Just as we said, we're kind of wrapping up in 5 minutes here, but I just want to kind of go in our comments section, see if anyone had any other further questions. But if not, you know where to find us. All our socials are right here in the banner. You can ping us, let us know. We can get back to you, or even follow up on further sessions.
So Damien, I want to tease out for whoever's going to stay the next like 2-3 minutes. Anybody that we get
Sure.
that sort of anyone that hung around to the end, I think you get to sort of enjoy the surprises that we're talking about a little bit. So we're actively talking about other formats, right? Other styles of the show, how we can have a more reoccurring show that hopefully gets going every week, where we run a show that's a general update on the sort of ecosystem and things that we're seeing. Another show that's specifically about Kalman Forge and updates there. And another show that's like this, which is just a more casual fireside chats on different hot topics and things that are going on in the industry. Our goal is really to make this dynamic, and based on the feedback that we've collected so far, that's some of the interest, right? Is making the show more dynamic and creating more sort of themed episodes. The other part that I'm really excited about as well, right? Is David and I agree. I think there's a lot of value in AI when it comes to creating content. We talked about the marketing side of it, but what we don't want to do is just create content for the sake of creating content, right? AI is a tool in that process. And so if we have all this intellectual property, all this content library that we've developed, we're working really hard to develop the run books, right? Of how would you use ChatGPT and other AI tools in order to create something like let's call it private product memorandum. When you have a product and you're trying to get that product ready for investors, and you have a whole bunch of notes on what that product actually is, how can you put those notes into a system that then gives you that output? So we're very quickly able to iterate and build little micro applications because of these language models and tools that are there. They're not the best, the best performance. It's not the best cost effective. It's not the most cost effective, but we are working on actively looking at ways to reuse our content ways to reuse the content that we have and create new sessions, so that we can get more people involved in the cool things that we're building. So I'll leave it with that. If you are still here and you hung out, thank you for joining. Please do drop us an email. You can send it to info@kalmansports.com, or if you want to go to any of the domains down there, the Ask Shai, or the Shai Perednik at LinkedIn, or Twitter, and also Kalman's Forge and all our handles there as well. All right, David, I think we'll call that a wrap and send everybody home for the day. Thank you for joining. I hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see everybody in about a week or two. Take care. Talk soon, everybody.
See ya.